With the Giro d'Italia consigned to the history books, all eyes now focus on the Tour de France. To prepare for the Grand Boucle, contenders turn to the 8-day stage race, the Dauphiné Libéré. It has short and long time trials, flat stages and big climbing stages, including the Mont Ventoux itself. It's the perfect training ground for a Grand Tour. 2007 Tour de France winner Alberto Contador of Team Astana is the big favourite, and a win here would lay the foundation for July. Two-time Tour runner-up, the Aussie Cadel Evans has had a quiet season thus far and needs now to step up with the Tour looming. And there's last year's Dauphiné Libéré winner Alejandro Valverde. He's here to defend his title and has extra motivation as his Tour de France start is in doubt. It appears he will not be allowed to ride this year's race. A mini Tour de France unfolds as the 61st edition of the Dauphiné Libéré is next on Versus. Yes, and for the first time, the Dauphiné Libéré will make its start from Nancy. It's an historic city near the borders of Luxembourg, Germany and Belgium. And most of the Tour de France stars are here too. Hello everyone, I'm Phil Liggett, alongside me is Paul Sherwin, and welcome to Cyclism Sundays from France. And I must say, it's not a very summer-like day here in Nancy either. Now, the Giro d'Italia is over, the Tour de France is next, and this is the preferred race to fill the sandwich. Paul, why is this? Oh, by the way, happy birthday.
Thank you very much, Phil. 53 years old today, and what a great birthday present starting Cyclism Sundays once again. This race is so important because it takes in a lot of the same roads as the Tour de France, the same climbs, and this year it's almost like a mini Tour de France because it's got the time trials and of course it's got the great Mont Ventoux. And historically, a lot of the great men who've gone on to win the Tour de France have used the Dauphiné. I'll give you a few names: Bernard Hinault, Eddie Merckx, and of course Lance Armstrong,
who did the double on two occasions, I must say, in 02 and 03. Now, teams will be looking now to finalise their riders for the Tour de France, so there will be a lot of internal competition as well.
There will. Riders that we're looking at this week to see themselves testing their legs on the big mountains are, of course, Alberto Contador, trying to take pressure off himself, but he will try to prove himself in the big mountains. Cadel Evans has finished second overall here for the last 2 years and got on to finish second overall in the Tour de France. And the man with a point to prove, Alejandro Valverde, I think will be looking to win this bike race again. Look for the outsiders too. Dan Martin, a young man on Garmin Slipstream, he's in great form this season, and for him this will be a good test for his chances of getting selection for the Tour de France. Sistov riding for Columbia High Road. Well, he in fact, Phil, earlier this year got himself a stage victory in the Giro d'Italia.
Who knows what to expect from Ivan Bassa? Well, today is a short but very tricky prologue time trial for the 151 riders.
Straight out of the blocks at 3 kilometres up to the summit of the climb of the Haute de Lièvre. On the way down there's a very tricky descent as well, and all of the riders know, Phil, that there's a big chicane at the bottom of that descent which could cause one or two riders to come unstuck.
Well, thanks, Paul. Before we go to the action, let's look at the standings. A little bit of a surprise here, but it's a good one for the USA because, as you can see, the four-time champion of Spain, Gutierrez, has the best time in 16 minutes 12. But Brent Brookwalter of BMC, they're here by invitation, is in second place, and the Frenchman William Bonnet sits in third. So that's the situation. It hasn't changed as we're looking now at Alexander Kolobnev here as he makes his approach towards the line. One thing about this course, Paul, it is very twisty and quite narrow.
It's a very difficult course for the riders to actually get their heads around, Phil, because the first 3 kilometres are extremely explosive. Coming up to the line now, this rider from Rabobank, Koos Moerenhout, has actually done a very good time with the intermediate time check at 3 kilometres. At the top of that climb he was 5th, but he's faded like a lot of riders are doing, Phil, in this individual time trial to 8th with a time of 16 minutes and 25 seconds.
It's a good point, that, because when Jose Ivan Gutierrez came in with best time, he was quite a way off the pace, some 25 seconds off the best time at that 3 kilometre point on top of the hill. But there you can see he's now on top of the pile, 16:12, just 6 seconds back to Brent Brookwalter. That's a super ride. And then B-Box Boy Telecom team William Bonnet, a little bit of a surprise there. It would be a great result if he stayed in that 3rd place, but it's unlikely. BMC, by the way, are the only non-Pro Tour team getting a ride this year in this event. It's a big feather in their hats, and they're going to give it their best shot, I'm sure of that.
Well, Marco Marzano of Lampre going out, but actually out on course just starting 1 minute ago was Daniel Martin, the Irish rider on Garmin Slipstream. And I have to say, Phil, he's a rider I'd like to see how he's going to perform in the Dauphiné. Came to prominence last year when he won the Route du Sud just before the start of the Tour de France. This year he's already had a great performance, 2nd overall in the Tour of Catalonia to none other than Alejandro Valverde.
Yes, that was a ride. It was all done on one stage, and then he defended it very well to hold on to 2nd all the way through. So I think we might see something out of him today. This is a fabulous course this year, I have to say. It's got all the elements of the Tour de France. It's all packed into just 8 days of racing. This is Van Endert coming up for Belgium, and Silence Lotto could do with a result right now. They're not having a very good year.
Well, just to put the Dauphiné Libéré, Phil, into a little bit of perspective, it's extremely important for a lot of these teams, because right now they're trying to fine-tune their final list of riders they're going to take to the Tour de France in around about 4 weeks' time, and they're probably now down to 14 or 15 men, of which they can only choose 9 to go through to the Tour de France.
Well, this man was something of a surprise winner overall of the Dauphiné Libéré race a few years ago now, Indigo Landaluze. And he's never really pulled up a great result since, but let's see what he can do this week as he sets off on his run. This will be Juan Antonio Fletcher now taking his place in the start house.
Watch out for a good ride here by Juan Antonio Fletcher, because this is the kind of course that will suit this man, an aggressive rider that we see in the early part of the season in the one-day races, and this kind of technical course when you have to keep attacking the corners, when you have to keep lifting up the pace, may well suit Fletcher on a day like today.
Well, amazing. You can see the sun peeping through the fluffy white clouds. The weather has changed in the last couple of hours from what has been a cold, wet and in times windy morning. The forecast of thundery showers all day have gone away, hopefully for the rest of the day. We're now looking down on the streets of Nancy here as the riders move away from the Place Léopold, starting, by the way, not very far from where they return to the finish. So that's the situation at the moment. No change in the top 3, and Brent Brookwalter still there behind Gutierrez in 2nd place. We'll take a break. Welcome back to stage 1 of the Dauphiné Libéré race here in France. Bob Roll now has been working on some cycling cartoon comics, and we thought it would be a good idea to give you a sneak peek. Versus has a brand new motion comic available exclusively online at versus.com. Adventures from the epic cycle, featuring stories from the mind of Bob Roll and starring cycling's brightest stars. Take a peek at episode 2 right now and watch the series unfold at versus.com.
Astana soldiers appear unstoppable, but what lies beneath the surface of victory? Johan Brunel's army overflows with talent. Leipheimer, Armstrong, Contador. Blessing or curse? Divide and conquer or fall divided?
Well, I must say those cartoon characters are going to have quite a feature. Don't forget, tune in to versus.com and enjoy the moment. As you rejoin the action here, this is the arrival now of Alexander Kolobnev. The Russian riders are having a great period in world cycling just at the moment. Not a great result for him, though. He'll be wanted out on the road by his team. Slipping away here outside the top 40, just getting in 45th place. 17 minutes dead.
A lot of big names, though, Phil. They're all starting at the back end of the main field. Alejandro Valverde, the winner of this event last year, starts last at 21 minutes to the top of the hour here in Nancy. Just a minute before him, Stein de Volde, a little bit further forward. Ahead of them, Ivan Basso, Alberto Contador, Cadel Evans and David Miller. These are names that in 4 weeks' time, Phil, we will probably be talking about at the Tour de France.
Thomas Vakus now, Paul, gets into the start house here. Another rider who's just coming into his own at the right time, because remember, as I said earlier, these boys are fighting for a place on the Tour de France team right now, and Thomas not least for Astana to ride alongside Leipheimer, Contador and of course Armstrong.
Well, you may well have noticed that some of the sponsors' names on the Astana team jerseys here are fading slightly, but it's not because they've washed them in hot water. It's in fact because there's a little bit of a dispute going on the financial front, and just checking out Johan Brunel's Twitter site this morning, Johan Brunel says that the financial arrangements between the Astana sponsors and the team are yet to be resolved.
Well, let's hope at least there's no controversy happens around this team before we get the Tour de France underway. That's so important, especially, of course, for the return of Lance Armstrong, and not least for Alberto Contador. Last time he rode the Tour, he won it, and last year he wasn't allowed to take part. So let's see what happens this time.
Well, bear in mind, when you talk about Alberto Contador, Phil, he's won every Grand Tour that he's participated in over the last 2 years. He's undefeated, and certainly, as everybody likes to say, he is the best stage race rider in the world.
I think no one disputes that right now, but you've got to, you're only as good as your last event. It's a famous saying which is absolutely true. It's a bit like us saying we're only as good as our last commentary, Paul. Be careful. Okay. Well, there's no change at all at the intermediate point, which by the way is taken at 3 kilometres on top of the climb of the Haute de Lièvre, which is the climb of the hare, very suitable for a time trial. Lasse Bachmann going here from Denmark, one of a few Danish riders in the race today. In fact, in all, Denmark have got 5. But the advent of the Americans in world cycling, Paul, because the Americans have 7 riders in this race, and they are sitting now as the 8th top nation of 26 with the entry.
Yeah, their biggest entries coming from France and Spain with 28 participants. It's amazing to think that only 100 kilometres from where we're commentating right now, there's another great big bike race going on, and that's the Tour of Luxembourg. We came through there yesterday, and in fact, Frank Schleck got himself the have to dose your whole effort over the full length of the course. He went through there faster than anybody by 7 seconds, and he faded completely on the running down towards the finish, and he's currently only lying in 11th place. It is so important to start the time trial fast, but not too fast when you've got 3 kilometres uphill, and then you've got 9 kilometres of very fast course.
Well, this man can turn a pretty fast pedal. He's a good track rider too, Evgeny Petrov, who makes his move here for Katusha. And the former owners of this pre-Katusha team, Tinkoff, the boss of that, saying these boys aren't riding well enough this year. Well, they had a good result around the scene, but he wants more. So we'll see whether Petrov can turn something in today. Back out with Vakus, riding for Astana. The team champions, remember, Astana from the Giro d'Italia, of which Armstrong played more than a beginner's role in that. He was absolutely superb, in my opinion. This is the arrival of their Viti now of Spain.
Well, he comes up to the line, and we think he's trying to set some goals out on the course for his man Alejandro Valverde, last year's winner, who starts at last in the starting house at 39 minutes past the hour. This man has always got a smile on his face. He enjoys the sport of professional cycling. Adam Hansen of Team Colombian High Road.
Adam Hansen, the Queenslander, who says he's always on his holidays when he's professional cycle racing, but he can turn in some very, very good performances. But still, there's no change overall as Hansen makes his start. We'll take a quick break, and it's still in the lead. Gutierrez of Spain with his magic ride of 16:12. So there's plenty of action-packed to come tonight on Versus, but at the moment we're back with the Dauphiné here from Nancy, and the riders are coming in thick and fast, Paul, but there's no movement in the top 6 at all. Gutierrez, Buchwalter of the USA in 2nd place, William Bonnet, Sebastian Lang and Maciek Bodnar. That's the top 5 for you as Trofimov comes up, and he's going to make no impression either.
Well, a lot of these riders, Phil, are great climbers. This is a race that really has got an incredible selection of disciplines to actually come up with in the Dauphiné this year, because we've got this starting time trial, we've got a 42-kilometre time trial, and some very, very famous big mountain climbs in the Alps, and of course the Mont Ventoux. But here, Jeff Lauder, riding for Team BMC, is getting himself psyched up now for this 12.1-kilometre test right around the heart of Nancy.
Well, his teammate Brent Buchwalter has played his part today. Had quite an early start. He went out the house very early on in this 151 rider field, and as Lauder's gone, he's going to be inspired by that. Back to Sebastian Rossler, who's from Belgium, and Quickstep. Seeing the Quickstep jersey reminds me, still to come, he'll go 21 from the end, is the naughty boy Tom Bonen.
Well, this man, watch out for the performance by him at the top of the climb, because he's already this season won himself 2 individual time trials, and one of those was in the 4 days of Dunkirk. He's a young man on the way up to the top of the sport of individual time trialing, and I think he could create quite a bit of a surprise.
Well, as you say, he's a very, very good time trialist, and this is a very tortuous course, a course that might suit the style of a Belgian cyclist here. The roads aren't the best surfaces either, as you will get a good look at the course as the big riders start to come out. At the moment, we keep going to and fro. This is Fuji's Joseph Jufre, who's making his start now. Serious moments before you're down that ramp. The riders actually finish behind the way they start. They come from our right of the picture and turn left to race up to the finishing line.
Yeah, but as I've said a number of times, Phil, it's a very difficult course to judge here. As you can see, this is a long drag up for the first 3 kilometers. Then you plunge off this climb, the climb of the high hare, as it's known at the top end of it, and you have to go down like a hare being chased by the hounds. Very tricky descent, a couple of little chicanes down towards the bottom. Then it's a big powerhouse for the final 7 kilometers.
General opinion from the riders is, as Amel Mouinard comes up the line here, he's also out the top 20, is that providing the rain stays away, this is a very good course. But although we've had lovely sunshine, there's rather black clouds moving in now, and if it comes now, it will catch the big names, the expected champions of the Dauphiné this next week.
Alexander Pichot, he's about to start as well, and we're waiting now really to see the big names coming into the starting gate a little bit later on. As you mentioned, of course, Tom Boonen making his big comeback to the top end of the sport, David Miller, Cadel Evans, Alberto Contador. It really is a who's who of the Tour de France of cycling, which is happening in 4 weeks' time. And this, Phil, I think really has all the separate essences of the Tour de France, but compacted into just 8 days of racing.
I think it's absolutely super tour, this one, and you know, day 4 on Mont Ventoux, where the Tour has its penultimate stage this July. The day before that is a 42-kilometer individual time trial. Then we go over the big climbs like the Col de Libéré, the Col de la Croix de Fer, the climb of the Col d'Izoire. They're the big mountains, and then we have a few ripples that take us down to the finish in Grenoble. It's got all the elements of a super race this year. The lonely figures down there, they've done very well to work out a 12-kilometer, which is a 7-mile route right in the centre and just on the outskirts of Nancy.
Yes, one man, as we hear John Rousseler, Alberto Contador, has said that he's not riding this race specifically to win it, but he wants to test his legs on a number of occasions. Now, he's already been out, Phil, and had a look at a number of the mountain stages of the Tour de France. He's been riding on average around about a 5-hour day, including 4 mountain passes on every day. So I think his legs are going to be extremely good, maybe later on in this event.
Right, a little bit of a race for the line here, being led up by Nocentini. The Italian always rides, used to ride well. As we come through now to 12th place, 13th, 14th, he slips away. So we're looking now for the finish of Dan Martin here. He won't be too far away. We're interested how this young Irishman progresses. This is Rossler out on course.
Well, Rossler is still to go through that first time check at 3 kilometers. Well, he must have gone through, because he's going over the top of the climb of the high hare, and he's starting the descent. And I haven't yet had a chance to see what his time check was at 3 kilometers, but it should be a good one, because he is a specialist at this individual effort.
Well, Rossler is not touching the top here, which is a bit of a surprise. That's the situation at 5 kilometers. Passamontes, who faded, went through in 5:14. Lang was just 7 seconds slower. Martin Velitz going through, but in fact, they were saying it was his twin brother Peter, but he's not. They've changed it now to Martin.
Bear in mind, at that first time check at 3 kilometers, none of the riders who in the first 5 places are placed in the first 5 riders. And it just feels so important, I think, to dose out your effort for the last 9 kilometers of this race, when you can all of a sudden turn on the power and use the big turbos.
And there is quite a little wind blowing here today. Not what we would call a float day for riding a time trial. As the start line here, Sébastien Joly takes the start. Nocentini, the last man in. Next man in will be Daniel Martin. We rely heavily on our French cameras switching to the finishing line. At the moment, Daniel Martin has finished, and we didn't see him. He's confirmed at 16 minutes and 55 seconds. So a little bit of the pace.
Well, I wouldn't be completely concerned about Dan Martin, Phil, but after all, I have to say that he is a climber.
Marco Marzano coming in and pushing here, but it's a long way up this home straight from the bottom bend towards the line. But it's still a good ride from Marzano here. He's a good rider on lap 16.26 for him. All right, we'll take a break, but when we come back, we'll have an interview with 2011 Tour de France winner, Contador, who tells us all about how his cycling career all entirely ended due to a crash 5 years ago. Welcome back to the opening stage. It's a time trial of the Dauphiné Libéré. Now, one of the names on everyone's lips this week is, of course, the Spaniard Alberto Contador. He's shaping up to be the heavy favourite at this year's Tour de France. But some people may not know that in 2004, he had an horrific crash, which almost ended his cycling dreams.
Bueno, pues fue antes de una carrera en 2004 iba a debutar.
Back in 2004, when I was 21 years old,
21 años en el Tour de Francia.
I was going to start in my first Tour de France, and one of the races before, one of the preparation races, was the Tour of Asturias. A few days before the race, I was feeling some headaches, which I'd never had before. And in the first stage, I started in that race. In the first stage, I crashed and fell unconscious. At first I didn't know what happened. Was this because of the crash, or was it something that happened before the crash? I was taken to the hospital, and there they saw it was an aneurysm. So they did the surgery. It was a success. The only bad memories I have are a big scar on my skull and some metal plates and titanium screws in my head. When I was in the hospital and recovering from my injury and surgery, it is true that I read Lance's book. It was a big help for me, a big motivation, especially since Lance is my big idol. After the surgery, I started to look at life from another angle. For example, after 7 months of recovery, they told me I could go start riding my bike again and start to train. I was the happiest man in the world. I didn't think about becoming a rider again. I was just happy I could go out on my bike and have fun and enjoy the exercise. So when things get tough for me and I am suffering and things don't go as I want them to, I can look back at the experiences Lance had when he started again, and it puts everything back into perspective. If something doesn't go right, it is not that important. I'm just happy to be where I am and in good health.
I've been following Contador from when he was an amateur. He's just a natural climber, one of the best I've ever seen.
Well, from those rather dark days, this is what he's done since a winner of the Tour of Spain, the Tour of Italy and the Tour de France. He joined a very elite club there, Paul. But when we were on the Tour Down Under in Australia, on his comeback year, he was a very different bike rider, wasn't he?
Well, he certainly has, and now he's changed himself into being the best stage race rider in the world, which is why I think, Phil, he's going to give some serious pain out this week in the Dauphiné Libéré, because although he says he doesn't want to win this bike race, he goes uphill so fast, I don't think anybody's going to be able to stay with him.
I really do think he's the greatest climber racing at the moment. So Alberto Contador himself will leave the start house here. 7th to last rider to go. The defending champion Valverde will be last out of the box as we look down from the skies here now. Still no change at all, Paul. The early starters taking good advantage of the warm sun, and I'm wondering now if the wind has just got up that little bit.
Well, it changes conditions an awful lot over this period of about 3 hours, and that's the distance between the first man to start, who started at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But coming back there, Phil, to talk about Alberto Contador, the organisation here, I think, have been just a little bit mean to Cadel Evans, because he starts directly behind Cadel Evans, the man who he beat in the Tour de France 2 years ago.
And here is Thomas Peterson now from Garmin, who had a fabulous day out in the Tour of California and now settling into a full season here in Europe as he disappears around that left-hand bend. Our cameras have caught up here with Sebastian Rosler. It'll be interesting to see this man's time. He is a good time, so as I feel at this course, a little bit too tight and twisty and perhaps a little bit too short for him. He likes to win the longer distances. This is our famous arrow, Juan Antonio Fletcher, coming in. Always relied upon for a good finish. And again, he's getting a top finish here because we've already got over 80 riders have crossed the line.
He's an aggressive bike rider. 17th place there for Juan Antonio Fletcher. He's lost himself around about 13 seconds. But again, he had lost himself at more than 15 seconds at the first time check. So he was very consistent over the last part. We go back here to Rousselet. You get a chance here to see how fast this man is going, which is why you've got to keep a little bit of gas left for the last part of this course. He really is now starting to get that big gear turning over. He's looking at the time of Jose Ivan Gutierrez to beat, and that's a time of 16 minutes and 12 seconds. But don't forget that Spaniard on the Case d'Epargne team is an expert at the individual time trial.
Staff Shearlinks now for Silence Lotto, Cadell Evans' team. Let's see what he can do out there and perhaps blaze a trail for Cadell later. Cadell is a big question mark on the Australian this year, yet he hasn't really excelled because by this stage of his normal seasons he's beginning to fire on all barrels, as he's shown with second place in this event for the past 2 years, which took him to second place in the Tour de France also for the past 2 years. But at the moment, teammate Staff Shearlinks makes his move.
Well, the important thing for Cadell is to look at his teammates in a race like this, Phil, and try and decide which men he's going to take forward to the Tour de France, because he needs solid support when he goes up into the big mountains, because he's going to come up against a serious Astana block, and that's going to be very difficult, I think, for Johan Bruneel to actually pick his team, because 3 places are almost already pretty much taken up. Alberto Contador, of course, Levi Leipheimer after his performance in the Giro d'Italia, and of course number 3 man, or is he number 2 man? We won't know until we get to the month of July. Lance Armstrong.
As they say, time will tell, and so it will for the rest of the rides here as they continue now towards the opening day finish of this time trial. We'll say goodbye for the moment to Vladimir Efeki. See you in a moment. Versus has teamed up with MapMyRide.com to present the Tour de France Challenge. Not only do you have a chance every day to win thousands in prizes, but you can actually see how you might have done had you ridden in a stage of the Tour itself. How does it work? Pretty easy. All you need to do is ride your bike, and then Versus and MapMyRide.com will do the rest. Check out more details at mapmyride.com/TDF. So we're now seeing the arrival here of Katusha's Evgeny Petrov, and he's cut quite a few riders here, so well, I was going to say it was a good time. It's not that great, Paul. 16 minutes 18 seconds. Yes, it is. Our clocks let us down a bit there, but he's slotted into second place. So Petrov has turned in a good time trial.
Just 1/10 of a second faster than the American rider on BMC, Brent Buchwalter, and still holds on to third place there. We're now on the shoulders here of Bert Rossler. He's now getting himself up to the final kilometre. As you can see, it is a fairly tricky run in. There's a nasty bend at around about 450 metres to go to the left-hand side. But I have to say, looking at Rossler here, Phil, I think this man has got the goings of a good performance here this afternoon. He doesn't look like a man who's weakening at all.
Well, Petrov there, he was the world under-23 champion 9 years ago in Plouay here in France, when he did it in the road race and the time trial. Although he's gone well, he's never gone really what you might expect his reputation to have promised us. But even so, he's slotted in there in second place. Katusha will be pleased with that. Well, we've seen a lot of Rossler out on course. That's because our cameras are getting out there now, at least. Very difficult for television because they're not allowed to turn around and go against the race. So they've got to go with the riders and then follow the next ones out. So it's quite a logistical nightmare for the television on a time trial like this. We're actually going down what is normally a one-way street in the opposite direction. That's the swing into the home straight. And thankfully it's a dry one. The riders start behind this picture as they go out into the distance. This is Sebastian Rossler coming home. He's seen the clock, he's slipped the gears up. He's got a good place at the moment, Paul. It is a very good place, but it should drop away a little bit.
Well, a little bit of confusion in the timing here. The time to beat is 16:12 and Sebastian Rossler is 16:05, and it is going to be a brand new best time as he stops the clock in 16:09.
Well, they've corrected it at the last minute. Now, we got the impression from the early pictures there, he was steady up to the top of the climb, and then he really opened up with all cylinders. and it's been well worth it. There's 16:09 for Rosler.
Well, that's the important thing, Phil. He went through the 3-kilometre time check in only 18th place. He didn't put himself into the red zone. He didn't try too hard and build up the lactic acid because he knew he could take the advantage of his big power over the final 9-kilometre flat part of the course, and that's exactly what he did.
Well, in fact, it's 56 minutes since Jose Ivan Gutierrez came across with the best time. That's how long he's had to wait, as the man who's unbeatable in the time trial in his home nation of Hungary, Laszlo Bodrogi, he goes now knowing that Rosler has just come in with the new best time.
Well, Bodrogi has for many years been the time trial champion of Hungary. We get out on the course, a chance here just to see how fast this course is. This once again is Vladimir Efimkin, a man who has ridden the Tour de France on a number of occasions and negotiating these corners. You see, most of the riders went out very early on this morning, Phil, to check out this course. The course was closed down very early on at around about 10:30 to 11 o'clock, giving the riders the advantage to see how fast they could go around these corners. But when they did their reconnaissance this morning, all of these corners were completely and utterly drenched.
Yes, now it's nice and dry and the sun stays out. The clouds are hanging over the finish, but looking out on the course here in the suburbs, it is not too bad at all as the riders race out into Maxéville, which is the suburb here of Nancy, as you head towards the motorway for Luxembourg. And plenty of corners here to keep the riders on the straight and narrow as they swing from left to right. So Sebastian Rosler has set the trend as we now go back to the start house here, and for a man who is really beginning to enjoy his life here in Europe, Team High Road's Craig Lewis makes his start.
Well, he gets a chance here to try the big high mountains a little bit later on in the Dauphiné Libéré as we look at Efimkin out on course, negotiating this corner. You see how he swings over to the left-hand side, cuts the apex of the corner, using the right over to the left-hand side of the road. The idea is not to lose any momentum when you go around these corners, to keep the pace nice and high.
So Rosler is the man in as we swing to the finishing line. This is now the arrival of BMC's Jeff Lauder, the only team allowed in that's not on the Pro Tour list. A huge honour, and they're not going to let the side down. And he comes in now with 28th best time, just 31 seconds off the time set now by Sebastian Rosler.
Well, that was a great ride by the Belgian rider there out on course, Phil, because that's going to be rather difficult to beat. And we might have to wait right till the very end and the big names come out.
So the countdown here for Jerome Pinot. I don't think he'll upset the leaderboard. It is still Rosler on top, Gutierrez second, Petrov third, and Buchwalter fourth. See you in a moment. Welcome back. It's the opening prologue here of the stage one, in fact, of the Dauphiné Libéré. We're looking down at Juan Manuel Garate there, Rabobank. He's about 4 kilometres into his ride at the moment. Here in the start out is Xavier Zandio, looking very settled down and ready for the go. Looks up at the sky and he'll find that the sun is in the distance just now. A big black cloud has come over the start house.
Well, I think everybody now who's been warming up not too far away from where we are at the finish line here, because the start is only about 400 metres away. I think most of the big names will be looking from underneath their warm-up area at the clouds, wondering whether or not they will get a ride on dry surface, because if it rains in the next 15 minutes, Phil, it's going to really change the chances of everybody who starts in the last 15 minutes.
Well, we've just seen Joseph Jouffre flash by our commentary box, but his time off the leaderboard there, as we're now out on course here, where it is a beautiful day here. We're in the area of the Meurthe and Moselle region, and this race this year coursing due south for a couple of days to Saint-Étienne, and then we turn into the giants of the Alps via the Mont Ventoux in Provence. Situation at the moment, 16:09 for Rosler. He was far off the pace when we got to 3 kilometres. He was certainly on it when he arrived. Gutierrez in second place, Petrov third, and Brent Buchwalter looking set for a very good finish now, because we're 114 riders down the list of 151, and this looks like it's his teammate now, Thomas Frey, who is in the start house.
Well, just coming to 2 minutes past 6 in the afternoon here in Nancy. Only around about 37 minutes left to go before the last man starts, and that's Alejandro Valverde. But Thomas Frey is now out for the first very difficult 3 kilometres to the summit of the climb of the High Hare.
Nicky Terpstra coming up the home straight again. Nicky always does a good ride in an event like this. Just off the leaderboard, but he's right in there. He's split them. He's got third place with 16:17 for Nicky Terpstra. That's a great ride by the team Milram boy. He'll be pleased with that one, Paul. That's pulled one out the bag, I think.
It certainly has. Now going back into the starting gate, we can see everybody is now starting to get rather nervous. This is one of the riders from Fuji, David de la Fuente, a very aggressive bike rider we've seen in the past in the Tour de France. Not really at home in the individual time trial, but very much at home once the roads start to tilt up towards the skies.
And again, you see Terpstra pulling one up from the top of the climb there, because he was only through there in 13th best time at 3 kilometres, and he comes in with the 3rd best time. So it is just showing you've got to take it easy before you settle into the race today.
Well, that first 3 kilometres is extremely important, because if you lose too much time there, you'll never pull yourself back into the race. But if you go too fast, you haven't got anything left to use your power on the run in towards the finish. Coming in now for Team Cofidis, this is Christophe Kern. He's been in the saddle for 16 minutes and 20 seconds. This is not a bad ride for the man from France. He's going to be in top 20, I think, by the end of the day.
Inspired by the fact that Cofidis is sponsored and hanging around the sport for the years to come, and he comes in 16th place. As he runs out, heads towards the Place Stanislas. That's the famous square here in Nancy. Absolutely beautiful piece of architecture. Back in the start house now, we've got Laurent Lefebvre. No results for Lawrence this year. Only got 1 win last year. His big result, 3rd in the Dunkirk 4-day, I guess, a couple of years ago. He's never won a time trial, and I don't think it's going to start today, but you never know.
Well, he's been a solid professional for many years. As we look over the shoulders here of Gorka Verdugo of Euskaltel-Euskadi, you get a chance to see how good this course is. As you mentioned earlier, Phil, it's very difficult to design a safe course out in the streets of a city like Nancy, which has got an awful lot of traffic furniture on the ground, and also it's got a lot of cobblestones, which I think many of the riders were concerned about if the rain came down, or should I say if the rain comes down.
So Sébastien Joly of France comes up outside of the top 20 for Française des Jeux. Long supports of French cycling, mouth wide open. That should help him slow down. 16:39. We'll take another break. The epic cycle on Versus continues next Sunday at 4 Eastern. We're right back here for the finish of the Dauphiné. From time trial to Mont Ventoux, we'll bring you the recap and the conclusion of this mini Tour de France. And beginning July the 4th, it's the most epic race ever, the Tour de France. Lance Armstrong, Carlos Sastre, Alberto Contador, they all line up in the most grueling race in the world. That's the 2009 Tour de France, live only on Versus. Well, now we're back with the Dauphiné here, and that's Christian Nice just snatching his start out of the start house. He's gone off a minute behind Laurent Lefebvre. He's the rider 117th of the 151 riding. Columbia High Road has started 1 man short, and I'm not sure why. But I think, you know, these days in Pro Tour team sport, with so many races going on, and you've got the Tour Luxembourg literally 60 miles down the road as well, finishing today, they haven't got the riders at this time of year.
And if you bear in mind, a lot of riders coming off only a week ago, the finish of the Giro d'Italia. Yeah. We were looking there over the shoulders from the air of Juan Manuel Garratti. This is Vladimir Efimkin, 25th time for him, but this man, again, one of those riders more reputed as a climber than an individual time trialist. Interesting though, Phil, at the 3 kilometre mark, there is still no new name starting to appear in the top positions there, as we look here at David Moncoutier. A serious 8 days of racing for him leading up to the Tour de France. He started off the season extremely well with a big win on the Montferrand in the Tour of the Mediterranean, and I think here he would like to show the Team Cofidis that he's got the climbing legs ready for the Tour.
Well, he's had a good start, you say. He won that Montferrand stage in the Tour of the Mediterranean. It was the 6th day of that race, and he's also finished 2nd overall in the Tour de Haute-Var. Since then, no, back in February, nothing outstanding coming from David Moncoutier. So he'll want to show us this week he's ready for what I think for him is an automatic selection for Cofidis for the Tour de France.
Well, team leader, and certainly the man who has a strange way of riding, because he either rides right at the back end of the main field or a long way off the front of it, and he's got himself an awful lot of success in the Tour de France and notched up 2 stage victories. Benoît Vaurenard of Team Française des Jeux, and he's a rider who we've seen be very aggressive over the last few years, and the team manager of this team, Marc Madio, said the team had not come here to enjoy or to prepare, they have come here to race.
Well, 2 years ago he was the national time trial champion of France, which is not a bad country to get a title in. This year he's had a 3rd place overall without winning a stage of it in the Circuit de la Sarthe, a race here in France. That was in April, and nothing more or less since then. But again, riders tend to take a rest period after good performances in the month of April, dreaming of a place in the Tour de France and hoping that they can coax their form to gently be on the rise by the time they come to this race and the Tour of Switzerland. And don't forget, of course, we'll be bringing you coverage of the Tour of Switzerland as well over the next 2 weekends. Out on course then, he settles in quickly. It's not a very pleasant start, I must say. After you leave the square here, you then start this gentle climb of the Lièvre, which in English means the hare, and I think it's terrifically fitting for a time trial. It's not a huge climb. It's rated only a 4th category, but it does count in the King of the Mountains. Top 3 riders over the top get 5 points, 3 points and 1 point for the climb, so that will add on to what they gain over the next week or so. And it's drawn quite a nice little crowd out here as we head up towards the little town there of Maximin.
Well, this race has always been extremely important with the Tour de France on the horizon, and most of the riders who won this great race in the past have gone on to win the Tour de France. Names like Bernard Thévenet, and of course Bernard Hinault, Eddy Merckx, Lance Armstrong, and of course it really is, I think, for a lot of riders, the final fine-tuning to get them ready for themselves, get themselves ready for what's coming up in 4 weeks' time.
So Gorka Verdugo comes in. He just breaks into the top 30 there, but 28 seconds off the best time, still held there by Sébastien Rosler of Belgium. Are we in for a surprise? I doubt it, but there are still 30 riders to go. Now this is Nicholas Roach in this is Steve Kutzer now for Garmin, who is here as he starts to break out of the tent. And the determination here. Garmin need a good result now. They started so well in the Giro d'Italia, but they dropped away a little bit after that. Well, as Stephen makes his start, we look down in Nancy. No change in the overall. See you in a moment. Well, welcome back as we welcome to the start house here Marco Bandiera of Lampre now, as he's the 122nd of the 152. So we're into the last 30 riders now, and of course the big clutch of riders at the bottom end, the last 12 riders, are likely to alter the overall standings, which haven't changed, by the way, since Sébastien Rosler came home.
Yes, with a time of 16 minutes and 9 seconds. That's the benchmark that I think everybody in their team buses not too far away from us here will be looking at, because they'll all be watching this on television, as we are. Manuel Garate, a lowly time for this man, 60 seconds, 16 minutes and 56 seconds, but a man who I think we'll see a lot more of leading up to the Tour de France, because he's a man who is always counted on by his teams to do a lot of pacemaking in the mountains.
Well, Garate now is over 33 years of age, so perhaps he's catching up. But we mustn't mention age when we talk of Paul Sherwin, whose birthday it is today, nor Lance Armstrong, indeed, who's riding the Tour de France at 37. Anyway, Bandiera goes away, and comes into the start house now is Igor Anton. Now, this is a rider I have a feeling we'll be seeing plenty of once we get to the hillier roads. He loves this event. He is on form. He's been placed in it before.
Well, he was 3rd overall in the Tour of Switzerland last year, a very aggressive rider. He got that 3rd place in the mountains, and if you want mountains, well, certainly the Dauphiné Libéré this year has got plenty of them, and famous mountains at that. Ventoux, Galibier, Izoard and the Col de la Madeleine. I'll tell you one thing, this is going to be a very tough race, with a lot of riders testing their legs, with the Tour de France still only 4 weeks away.
It's interesting, he's obviously changed his build-up, Paul. Instead of going to the Tour of Switzerland this year, he's chosen to come here to the Dauphiné Libéré. So that might be it. Lance Armstrong used to do that. He either went to one or the other. He won them, of course, and then he went on to win the Tour de France. That's Shearlings, who's just come in, by the way, but we haven't got a time for him, so it can't be sensational. He's just flashed over the line now. What's he done?
Well, he came through there with a time of 17 minutes and 7 seconds, so that was not a great time by staff, but he's one of the riders who I think will be called upon later in the week to do a lot of work for Cadel Evans. This man could do a good ride in the individual time trial. He's formerly been the champion of the individual time trial of Holland, Staaf Clement.
Yep. New team for him this year. He's gone back to the Dutch teams. He is a Dutchman, but he was racing for the French one. He won the Chrono des Nations last year for Bouygues Telecom, which is a top time trial. This year, though, he's back with Rabobank, and we'll see what he can do. He has been, as Paul said, the champion of Holland. This might be just a little bit short for him.
Coming through there, looking over his shoulders, that was Benjamin Noval with a time of 17.01. And again, Noval is one of the big strong men that Team Astana just put on the front of the race for miles and miles to set the tempo for men like Levi Leipheimer, Lance Armstrong, and of course Alberto Contador. Jürgen van der Broek.
Jürgen van der Broek of Silence Lotto. They've had some criticism in the Belgian press. They haven't quite landed the results that the press seem to demand of this team and the results that Quick-Step have been getting. But you know, the world changes very quickly in professional cycling. Maybe this time around their leader Cadel Evans will perhaps produce the goods.
Quick study there of some of the aerodynamic equipment. You see that front wheel there has got a very deep rim, and that's made out of carbon fibre. That's to make it as aerodynamic as possible. I'm not sure if you managed to catch a glimpse of the spokes there as well, because they are flat, just like the blades of a knife.
Yes, and I should imagine they're not allowed in road racing because they are a little bit too lethal. But time trials are okay. We're back out on course here now with Craig Lewis, and a chance to get a look at this young American rider. He is on one of the world's top teams now, Team Columbia High Road. They're not quite the top of the list this year so far, but they are winning, especially with the women's team, just about everything they take part in. Craig Lewis is embarking on a long, tough 8 days of racing here, and it's all starting with a 12 kilometres time trial here in Nancy.
Well, what a team to be on, because this is really one of the top teams in the world. But when you're on a big top team like Columbia High Road, Phil, how are you going to get selection for the Tour de France? Because when you start to throw the names that this team have got in their roster, it's very difficult to get into the top nine to get yourself a ride in the Tour de France.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, and for Craig it won't be the Tour this year, but for the road ahead, yes, very likely it will be. We wish him well there. Well, we'll let him go for the moment as he heads out. He's about 4 kilometres into his effort. We'll find out what he does when we come back. We'll see you in a moment. Welcome back as they're all coming home now in the race here. This is Badrogi coming in. It'll be interesting to see what he does, but surprisingly, Paul, not the time trialist we usually see.
Well, Badrogi's coming back off a very nasty injury which he got towards the end of last season. He's finding his way with a bit of a battle to get back to form. A solid ride by Badrogi in 37th place. He's lost himself around about 30 seconds, and that is a surprise to him, but I think he'll ride himself into form going on later on in this race.
Concentration here. I think this is Nicky Sorensen, who is the road race champion of Denmark. As he now prepares for the journey, he's chasing Hernandez of Astana, who's just gone out. I've just seen a good time come up. Paul Christian Knies has slotted in with second best time. We didn't see it at 3 kilometres, 5 minutes 19. If he can hold that, then he'll take the lead off Rosler.
Well, Phil, he's the first rider in about the last hour of this individual time trial to actually change the top 5 positions at the 3 kilometre time check. I think they will start to change now, because we've got some very big famous names in the sport of professional cycling starting to line up and get themselves ready. And looking out from the commentary position here, there are still blue skies, so I think we may well, with a little bit of fingers crossed, have everybody participate here in the dry weather.
This is Craig Lewis swinging into the home straight. The sun is back with us, and we've had no rain so far. Just a general ride by Craig here. He's probably riding to instructions: just don't kill yourself. You're not going to win today, just get round the course, and that, I think, is what he has chosen to do. No big effort. This is the stage he wants out the way. Tomorrow could be a different story. 87th place as he comes in, concedes almost a minute to the leader Rosler.
Well, just another little piece of information. We're looking here at Jérôme Pinault, one of the French riders on Team Quick-Step, coming across the line there. 6th place for him. That's a solid performance by the Frenchman, who was brought into this team to follow Sylvain Chavanel.
That was a good ride by Pinault, and he must have been using Craig Lewis there as the proverbial carrot, because you will have had him in his sight for the last couple of kilometres. So, Jérôme Pinault, no wins at all. In fact, the last time he won a race was Paris-Bourges in October 2004. But it's a good time to start.
It certainly is. Any time's a good time to start. Geert Stegemans, a man who used to be the lead-out man for Tom Boonen, taken a jump across to the Russian squad Katusha for the big money. Now he will be trying to get himself victories over the first couple of stages, and he now rolling down the starting ramp.
And Stegemans, sadly, of course, is now the leader of the sprinters on that team because of the accident to Robbie McEwen in the Tour of Belgium, who now nurses a broken leg, but insists he will come back. even though he's now 36 years of age. We wish him well. Sadly, he won't be in the Tour de France. Out to watch a sprinter here, a good stare too, Vincenzo Nibali, a man who rode very well towards the close of the Tour of California this year.
And rode very well, I think, in the Giro d'Italia. A lot of people, Phil, believe that this man here has got a very good chance of being a contender in the Dauphiné Libéré this year, alongside his teammate, who starts around about 5 riders from the end, Ivan Basso, who finished coincidentally 5th overall in the Giro this season.
Situation then, with about 22 riders still to start, is Rosler 3 seconds ahead of Gutierrez, 8 over Terpstra. Petrov is in 4th place there. Well, we're a minute away now from the start of Tom Bonen as we look here at Franciszek Rabon, who has had his big moments for Team Colombia this year as well, and he will lead off.
Well, he's the Czech individual time trial champion, so he won't be scared at all, Phil, of performing over 12 kilometers like this.
Winner of the prologue in the Tour of Romandy this year, and he held the lead on a couple of days on separate occasions. Tom Bonen will be next to leave that start house, coming back into the big time of cycle racing after his well, I don't know what you call it really, but they say it's the 3rd time he's been socially found using the drug cocaine, and I think Tom needs a little bit of help on that score. So as we see up front here now, this is still Vincenzo Nibali. He starts 2 minutes in front of Tom Bonen. There is Tom Bonen in the start house, and he knows that he's got to prove something to himself here, to his team, to the organiser of the Tour de France, and to the world in general. He wasn't taking drugs to cheat in cycling, but the world still frowns on taking cocaine socially. So Tom Bonen has a lot to prove, and as Bonen makes his start, we'll take a big break. We're now down to the last 20 riders in the start house. See you in a moment. Plenty of action still to come on Versus, but at the moment this is Tom Bonen out on course now. Now we've been trying to find out, as we quickly go to the start house, to find the Tour de France winner who replaced Floyd Landis as #1 a couple of years ago. Oscar Pereiro take to the start. But to finish the story on Tom Bonen, it does appear, latest news telling us, he may be riding the Tour de France, and if the organisation of the Tour de France, who are saying they've given the authority to the UCI, then they won't be stopping him, because any investigation into Bonen will take place after the Tour de France is over. So we could see Tom in the team. This is the arrival of Laurent Lefebvre, crossing in 11th place. Another good ride from this Frenchman. He does turn in some good rides.
Solid bike rider, 32 years of age. I have to say, Phil, coming back to the Tom Bonen thing, I kind of feel a little bit sorry for Tom Bonen. It must be that people who are around him are not advising this young man properly. I know it's a question of the poor little rich boy who's got a little bit too much money, a little bit too much success very early on, fast cars, lots of girlfriends, and probably getting dragged into something he doesn't completely and utterly understand. And I hope that the team can rally around him. I hope the sport can rally around him and get him back on track, because I have to admit, I really enjoyed the way that he won Paris-Roubaix this year, and it was after Paris-Roubaix.
This could be a best time coming here now. It's just faded away, but only just, I think, because this is Nice, who was second best at the turn, at the 3 kilometres rather, and now second best at the finish to a different rider there, Rosler. And so that he's held his form there on the run to the finish, but again he faded a lot when you compare his time at that point with Rosler, where he was leading by quite a few seconds.
Well, he slots in 1 second behind Sebastian Rosler there, Phil, at the finish line, and that's an indication, I think, now that we will start to see some very fast times. Back again, Tom Bonen. This is only his 2nd race in competition since he made his comeback. At first competition was in fact a small Belgian Kermes, a circuit race where he finished in 27th place, actually having led out one of his teammates to the victory.
That's right, Wouter Valens, but in fact you can imagine, small race it was, imagine the amount of press who turned up to see him ride. He is a very popular man. There's talk that the Belgian people might take 1 deviation with cocaine, maybe 2, but they feel not 3. So we'll see if Tom Bonen's popularity is affected by his misdemeanors. But at the moment, he's got to prove he's a good bike rider again now and get on with the job. And then his friends have got to say to him, Tom, you go to bed, you don't go and take drugs down the local club, and then things might turn around for him. This is the Cofidis rider now coming in here, David Moncoutier, and nice steady time trial position. He's not given anything away here. He's either racing to win or lose by a long way as he hits the line, just concedes half a minute to Rosler.
Well, he'll be quite happy with that performance because he's not a great individual time trialist, and it's really very much all about the time. Pirik Federigo of Bibok Bouygues Telecom, he's a former French national road racing champion. You can see the bands around his jersey there, and he will be hoping to probably try and get himself into a break on one of the early stages.
She's Benoit Voronard, who's coming into the finish too, and again a very good performance by Voronard, former time trial champion, and he drops into the third slot. They're beginning to pile up now, Paul, because again Voronard on the 3 kilometre check was only in 16th place, so it's no good racing for the top of that hill. You've got to pace yourself on it and then go for home.
You have to pace yourself on the early 3 kilometre section of this course and have lots in the bag to really lift it up later on. František Rabon, the Czech national time trial champion, winner of the prologue of the Tour of Romandie, he'll be a man looking to see whether or not he can gain himself selection for the Tour de France team for Columbia High Road later on in the season. And a good time trial performance here may well earn himself that. But actually, reading George Hincapie's Twitter this morning, Hincapie is not too far away from where we are in Nancy, because he and the team are actually here in France to do team time trial training for the upcoming tour.
I don't know how he found time, because we watched Beckman go here, because George Hincapie was saying on his Twitter that he can't put the book that's just been released by Mark Cavendish, his teammate. He said it's so interesting he can't put it down. So how's he doing his training?
I think the funny thing about Mark Cavendish is he doesn't pull any punches at all. The time check at the top of the climb after 3 kilometres, you can see now has been led since almost the start of the time trial by Luis Pasamontes, 5:14. But Vincenzo Nibali has just gone through there with almost identically the same time, only separated by 0.3. In fact, he was 0.3 of a second faster than the Spaniard at that point.
Well, we move back down to the start house now as Remy Poriol is the next man to go to chase Fabien Weckmann of Team Milram in Germany. And again, we're moving into the area now. David Miller will start shortly, as will Cadel Evans, Alberto Contador, Ivan Basso. Bert Grabs, the world time trial champion, and Alejandro Valverde starts last as the winner of this event 1 year ago. So the creme de la creme will now be taking off those leg warmers and thinking about getting on that start house.
Yeah, just to put it into your mind, you may well think that today's stage is just 12 kilometres long, but for the professional bike rider, it's a very long day, a day of preparation. 2 hours riding this morning before they got themselves back to the hotel to eat 3 to 4 hours before the start of the individual time trial. Then after that, there'll be another 45 minutes warm-up on the rollers, not too far away from where we are here, so that they can get into the starting gate with the motors red hot and ready to go straight up to top speed.
Brent Bookwalter there, still riding very well in 7th place overall. This is his teammate and countryman, not his teammate. Yes, they're not his teammate. Stephen Kotzer coming in now for Garmin Slipstream. And again, Kotzer cruising around, but only conceding 42 seconds. Your place is not important, it's how much time you give away. 42 seconds is not too bad today.
It certainly isn't, but Nibali has been confirmed as the fastest rider at 3 kilometres, 5:14.34, 0.3 of a second faster than Luis Pasamontes of Caisse d'Epargne. Wow. Jérôme Coppel is the next man to come out of the starting gate for Française des Jeux.
Okay, well, we've still got to see Nibali come and fly the flag for Liquigas. We will see now as we see Jérôme Coppel take the depart. We'll take another quick break from here in Nancy. And welcome back to the Dauphiné Libéré and to the face and the arms and the tri-bars here of David Miller, the former British champion, who is now going to see if he can play a leader's role here and deliver the goods. He almost won the prologue of the Tour de France once, Paul, and what happened?
Well, he didn't listen to the advice of the team management and decided to go with a single chainring on the front, and his chain dropped off and he lost it by a fraction of a second to Brad Wiggins. Good ride by Steph Clement. Wasn't it? Brad McGee, sorry.
Yes, different country, similar name. Right, Steph Clement comes in 5th place. We expected that. Steph is a very good time trialist. All his victories coming in the time trial, and 5th place for him. He'll be quite content for Rabobank today. As we continue to look out on course now, this is Jérôme Coppel, who's just taken the start 2 minutes ahead of David Miller. And might surprise with a good result here. There's no change overall, by the way. It's Rossler, Christian Knies, Benoit Voronard and Gutierrez top 4. And Brent Bookwalter of BMC and the USA is now in 8th place.
Good solid ride by Team BMC, and a lot of their riders have placed themselves to the top end of the overall standings for the moment. Alexander Musa, by the way, the former Swiss national champion, he currently lies in 15th. Simon Siplak coming out of the gate here for Slovenia.
As we move up to join David Miller here, he's at the base of the climb of the Hare, and he went over to England after he retired towards the end of the Giro and rode a race there, which he won. It was a race in the dark, so probably nobody could see him. Anyway, Jürgen van den Broek coming home here now, and he gets a 12th place on the line, 16:24 for him.
Again, a solid ride, a man who will be called upon to look after Cadel Evans if he makes the selection for the Tour de France. Number 91, that gives David Miller the title of leader of Garmin Slipstream here at the Dauphiné Libéré, and he would like to come out with a good start and try and get himself a victory in this 12-kilometer individual time trial. I have to say, I think this course here suits the ability of a man like David Miller. It's also just about the right distance. Miller starting to get just a little bit older as a professional at 32 years of age, so he's got the experience to put in a top ride.
Mikel Astalota takes his start now as the 10th from the end of the list of 151 to leave the start house. He'll be chased by Joost Postuma of Rabobank as we look down on Jerome Coppel at the moment for Française des Jeux.
Well, the big names now are looking up at the skies and praying that the black clouds stay away, because it could completely and utterly change the way they ride over the last 12 kilometers. Because if the rain comes down on a course like this, it makes some of those chicanes on the descent from the climb of the High Hare very treacherous indeed. I have a feeling, though, Phil, we may well have had the gods of the weather smile upon this race here this afternoon.
I'm going to say we have, because I don't see any rain in the home straight now. I see a lot of people enjoying themselves with plenty of cameras as David Miller here powers his way around towards them. It'll be interesting to see. He left, although he left the Giro d'Italia, he left feeling fairly strong, and he proved that. He went to Edinburgh in Scotland, rode what they call a nocturne, a night race, took a teammate with him, Cameron Meyer, and they cleaned up. So he is going well. He's going to go back to England for the national championships as well.
Joost Postuma, just to finish, David Miller coming back to the Giro d'Italia after a broken collarbone. Joost Postuma, former winner of a stage of Paris-Nice, and he's a man who I think could create a bit of a surprise, because he's a very good individual time trialist. 12 months ago he won himself the 3 days of La Panna because of his time trialing ability.
Now there's David Miller, and before I get shot down by my Welsh friends, I better say he's going back to Great Britain for the national championships, because they are in fact being held in Wales at the last weekend of June. Back to the finishing order here now. This is Nicky Sorensen coming in. I expect a reasonable ride from Nicky midway. It's not so bad, I suppose. 127 men have finished with Nicky here, so he's approximately halfway through the finish at 63.
Well, he's lost himself around about 40 seconds as he comes across the finishing line, but what's more important are the men who are starting to come in now. This is Nibali. Now this will be an interesting time, Phil, because he's almost got that man in his sights, and it's going to be all the way down to the line.
Well, I think he's going to miss out just by a fraction of a second. He does. Again, he's faded a little bit. He had so much in hand over the 3-kilometer point, but again lost it on the run-in. But nonetheless, for Nibali, second place, that is a tremendous performance.
That makes him a threat going further down the road, Phil, in the Dauphiné Libéré, because this man is a great climber. There's lots of climbing to do in the Dauphiné Libéré this year, and he, I think, will be a little disappointed to lose out to Rosler. But don't forget, Rosler is a specialist at the individual time trial. Alberto Contador, that means we've missed the start of Cadel Evans, who must be out on course. Contador returning to competition after a number of weeks training at high altitude, and look at that bike.
Well, that is a beautiful bike with Contador on board. It's a new bike. Contador's never ridden it before, right?
This is a test machine that Alberto Contador wants to ride here at the Dauphiné Libéré to see whether or not he wants to take it forward to the Tour de France. And look at the way he's come out of that gate.
Well, he's ahead of the pack already. But anyway, we'll see. We're catching now up with Cadel Evans, because as he started, Nibali was finishing what the directors thought was best time. So they stayed with it quite rightly. We're now with Cadel Evans out on course.
Well, Cadel Evans has been second overall in this race, Phil, for the last 2 seasons without putting the pressure on his shoulders of trying to win it. He says he will ride as he's ridden over the last 2 seasons, and he expects to be a challenger. But he doesn't want the pressure of having to try to win. But I tell you what, he's got the pressure of one Alberto Contador starting just 60 seconds behind him in the individual time trial.
Yes, he won't want no ignominy here. He won't be even seen in the gun sights of Alberto Contador with his famous arrow when he wins those races shooting at him. So he's going to give it a good shot up to the hill here as we now go up to the finish. Gert Stegmans is coming in, and he's not far. Look, is that Rabon just behind? This is Rabon who's caught Stegmans. So this is the champion here of the Czech Republic, who's pulled a minute out of sprinter Gert Stegmans, and it's going to be a great time. It could be delivering the winning time here. A quick thrust to the line, and he's just going to lose it on the line. He's gone back to third place by less than 1 second.
And Phil, just to put it back into perspective, Rabon was not even in the top 20 riders at the first 3 kilometer time check. It just goes to indicate how important it is to dose your effort, to save something on this 3 kilometer point, not to lose too much time, but then if you've got the big power on the run into the finish, you can really turn the cards around. Number 11, Cadel Evans, 2 times second in the Dauphiné Libéré, 2 times second in the Tour de France. Can he make it one better this season?
Well, he'll certainly hope so. These are big moments for Cadel now. He's come here, I feel, with better form. He's got to prove to us now he's got the good form. As we slip to the smiling face here of none other than Ivan Basso. He's paid his penalty, and he's now looking forward to a full season of racing this year. He's had a great Giro d'Italia. He finished 5th in that. What will he do in this? Well, we might find out when you come back. We'll take a break. Well, here's the arrival of Tom Bonan. So a quick welcome back to the Dauphiné Libéré as Bonan comes up. That's not a bad ride, is it, for a man who's been out of the sport, not considered a time trialist. He's going to come home just in the top 50 at the moment.
Well, Tom Bonan, I think, got a lot to prove, Phil, over the next couple of days. Let's not forget that the first 2 stages of the Dauphiné Libéré should smile on the sprinters, but after that, there's not very much that the sprinters can actually take home from this race, apart from preparation for the Grand Tour. This is Cadel Evans. He's tuned his whole season to one thing, to get himself ready for the month of July. All of Australia stayed up extremely late last year, Phil, because they thought he was going to win the Tour de France.
Bert Grapsch, who won the title in October last year, is now going to prove once again why he's wearing the World Champions jersey.
Very explosive, the effort in a short 10 or 12 kilometer individual time trial compared to the World Time Trial Championships, which is usually around about 50 kilometers. Number 21, watch out for that number, Phil, because we will see that number, we will hear it on the race radio a lot of times over the next couple of days, because that is the number of Alberto Contador. Whenever I look at this man's style when he goes uphill, it reminds me of a certain man who won the Tour de France on 7 occasions, Lance Armstrong.
Yes, a thorn in the side of Lance Armstrong or a rose at the breakfast table. Who knows? We'll find out when they come together in the Tour de France. Look at this. Cadel Evans has gone through with 5:09. That is best time at the point. Getting ahead of Passamonte. He's the first man to do that for about 2 hours today. So Evans is on form. But if I had Alberto Contador chasing me, I think I'd try my best.
I would make sure that that man did not get me in his sights at all. There we can see the Belgian time trial champion Stijn de Volder. 2-time winner of the Ronde van Vlaanderen, but also a very good individual time trialist and a good man to try and win this bike race overall.
Yes, very good indeed, of course. The Ronde van Vlaanderen has been his race for a couple of victories, as we're now waiting for Contador. He's gone through in second best time, we're told, and he's gone through about 3 seconds slower than Cadel Evans. So we've been saying it all day. Is the man that goes over the hill slowest better in the running? We'll find out now.
Well, we're talking here, Phil, about slightly different engines. These are the big V8 coming out now, and this is Alejandro Valverde. He now is starting to get the information of the times out on course. The 3 kilometer time check. First Evans, second Contador, third Nibali. This man is the defending champion of the Dauphiné Libéré, and he has to try and prove that he can get himself around this race as fast as possible.
So as we watch now Contador making his course here now, the situation overall is Sebastian Rosler, Vincenzo Nibali, Francis Rabon hold top 3, but there's every indication now that it will be reshaped when these boys come home.
Well, Alberto Contador, look at that position, look at that machine. It's an incredible spray job they've got on this machine, but this is a prototype for Alberto Contador that he hopes will take him through to a second victory in the Tour de France and a 4th Grand Tour win for him. Solid ride by the former French national champion Peric Fedrigo, 54th place, losing himself 35 seconds in the process.
Yes, he should be chased home by Fabian Weckman, but those riders better get in quick because life's getting a bit hot out on course. Here is Alberto Contador, who has gone from that near-death illness he had. He came back. He's won all 3 Grand Tours over a spread of just 18 months of racing, and they all seem to come so early. It wasn't long before he won his first Grand Tour that Johan Bruneel was saying, this guy climbs like a person. I've never seen in my life, but he won't win yet. And here it is, he's got 3 in the bag already.
The amazing thing that Johan Bruneel always says about the kid Alberto Contador is how he can accelerate on a mountain pass. Once, twice, 3 times he can accelerate all of the time, just nullifying all of the opposition, actually probably making them feel pretty sick.
As we continue out on course now with Liqui gases, this will be Ivan Basso.
Well, Basso riding quite high there, Phil, not getting himself down into a very low aerodynamic position. A lot of these riders invest big time and big money during the winter months to try and find the position that is the most aerodynamic for their body. The most important part of an aerodynamic position is in fact the body, not the bike at all. Although we talk about making the machine as aerodynamic as possible, it is important to get the body into a position to cut through the wind.
Well, this is Poirier finishing, and a very good ride. We expected it, I think, from Cofidis rider here. He's in the top 30, just 29th. Basso, by the way, is riding behind Contador and Evans, and not in front of them. And he's gone through the check at 3 kilometres in only 19th place. Now, is that good or bad? Miller is just ahead of him. He's gone through in 17th place. But they're all conceding time, but not a lot of it, I must emphasise, to Cadel Evans and Alberto Contador.
This is Jérôme Coppel of Française des Jeux. Now, this is an impressive ride by this young man from France, because he's going to challenge the top. I don't think he's going to beat the Belgian rider, but it's going to run him very close.
He might. It's not that far. There's a Breton flag flying there. There's a big sprint. He's just passing through now. Remember, less than a second covers first 3. No, he slipped away, and he drops in 7th place, and he concedes in the end 5.6 seconds. That will go rounded up to 6 seconds when he goes out tomorrow.
I think team management will be very pleased with that performance by the young man who leads Française des Jeux here. This is further out on course, a little precarious ride around the corner there for Ivan Basso.
So as we look at Ivan Basso, confirming to you, Sebastian Rosler is the leader at the finish, followed by Vincenzo Nibali, Francesco Rabon. We'll take a quick break, rejoin us, and the stars will come home. See you in a minute. Well, welcome back, and as we look at the arrival of Cyril Dessel, I think just behind him is possibly David Miller coming in. At 50 seconds he's conceded there, Cyril Dessel. The man who's chased him by a minute is indeed David Miller, and here he comes as he drives up towards the finishing line. He's just slipping away off the leaderboard, so he hasn't confirmed his time. He slipped away, but he's still come home in 7th place. So based on his time at 17th best, Paul, he's climbed quite a lot.
A lot of the riders who are doing good performances are climbing up in the final 9 kilometres. 7th place at the moment for David Miller. He's only conceded 4 seconds. He really did accelerate over the last part of this course, but I tell you what, I'm waiting to see the time of Alejandro Valverde, and he's just gone through the 3 kilometre point with the 5th best time, 5 minutes and 16 seconds, only 7 seconds off the time of Cadel Evans. The big guns are firing. They're taking this time trial, Phil, extremely seriously.
As we look at Spilak coming in here now, searching for the gears, and already dropping away from the leaderboard, but still for Simon Spilak, it's not too bad a ride this. He's right up amongst it, not conceding many seconds as he continues to ride up towards the finish.
Well, he's surrounded by some of the big names of the sport of professional cycling, and not too far behind him he knows that men like Cadel Evans, Contador, Ivan Basso and Alejandro Valverde are burning up the road this afternoon.
10 riders left to finish now as we swing back out on course here. Astolosa will be the next rider to come as we've swung now to the world champion. Bert Grabsch is getting into that familiar side. Now this is quite a tricky part. They were fearing if it had been wet here, this would have caused a lot of problems on the race. There's a sharp turn at the bottom. Looks like we're not going to see it as we swing back to see Astolosa coming in towards the finish. Again off that bottom bend, searching for the gears, sitting down for a second, but once more Mikel Astolosa producing a high finish.
A great ride by this man, because he can hold his position once we go into the big mountain stages. That's why he's gone out and pushed himself here in the individual time trial, because he's maybe not thinking about victory today, but he's thinking about a high position further down the road. 25th, he's only lost himself 17 seconds, which is extremely respectable for a great climber.
Mind you, it might be half a minute when Valverde, Contador and possibly Grabsch and Evans come home, but we'll see as we go back out to Bert Grabsch now under the railway tracks. And this is where the course is a little bit tortuous. There's a lot of those traffic islands, which means you must keep your head up and your wits all around you here. Oh, I see nearly a double flick there, and he almost overshot that. He really did double correct it, but he got round it.
Well, he's taking a lot of risks because he's another one of those riders who at kilometre 3 time check, he wasn't even in the top 20, and for a world champion, you have to ride with pride. Here's Cadel Evans coming into the finishing straight. This will be interesting.
Well, Evans has made the corner here. His mouth is wide open. The man has finished twice second overall in this race. Only one Australian's ever won it, by the way, Phil Anderson. As he comes up, he challenges the time. So this is going to be Contador's target now, because Evans is easily going to beat the time of Sébastien Rosler. It looks as though Cadel is ready for the Tour de France, and he pushes home, heads towards the line, that familiar style. Best time, 15:36. That has rewritten the books now. First man inside 16 minutes.
Almost 33 seconds faster than the Belgian rider Sébastien Rosler, and that is a brilliant performance by Cadel Evans here this afternoon, throwing down the gauntlet. The challenge now to Contador is, come on, if you want to win the Tour de France again, mate, you're going to have to time trial just like I can.
Well, I'll tell you what, Paul, again, it was a 51-minute wait there for Rosler to see who could beat him, but will it be only a minute's wait for Cadel Evans, because Contador will be the next man in here. There he is, driving up towards the finish. He looks smooth enough. He keeps on saying to us he's not here to win. We're about to find out now. He's on 15 minutes and 19 seconds at the moment. It may not be enough as he counts through to 25. This is going to be very, very tight. Cadel Evans will be watching this one. If he's slowed down, 6 seconds the line. I'm not sure Contador can do this as he comes up towards the line. It's too far away. It might be a very, very good win for Evans, but it's a little bit early to say that. Contador slipping away after that great ride up the hill. 15:44 and second best time.
Lost himself 7 seconds. Bear in mind, though, Phil, over the last couple of weeks, he spent a lot of time in the big mountain passes concentrating on his climbing training rather than his individual time trial training. Although he hasn't won this individual time trial over 12 kilometres, I think he's going to be fairly satisfied with that performance.
Well, I wouldn't be rejoicing just yet if I was Cadel Evans, although he was leading Alejandro Valverde at the 3 kilometre check. We've seen riders come back from the depths of the checks there to take the leaderboard. Valverde here racing towards the finish, and the unknown, one has to say it, Paul. Is he in the Tour de France? Is he not? The Tour de France visits Italy. The Italians say he's out for 2 years. I mean, what is going on?
It is very complicated because there are so many people claiming the rights to control each individual sport. In fact, the Italian Olympic Committee have banned Alejandro Valverde from racing on Italian soil. He can race here in France, he can race in Spain, but they've banned him from Italian soil because they say they have consistent proof that he was involved in Operación Puerto. But I'd like to know, Phil, who in fact is in charge of controlling the sport when it comes down to drug taking.
And the Tour de France goes on Italian soil, but who's in charge of the Tour de France? It's a French race sanctioned by the French and the world body. So is he under Italian rules, French rules, or the world rules? I mean, it's a problem the sport has really got to sort out. All these positive people from other sports, what happens to them? We never hear the name mentioned again. In cycling, these guys are hauled by the neck until dead.
Well, there were some strange results came out of the Olympic Games, and when we heard the results of some of the post-Olympic Games testing, it just seemed to fizzle away when we talked about track and field.
Exactly. Well, we're back with the world champion of the time trial now. This is Bert Grabsch here. I don't think he's enjoyed this ride. I just get that feeling he hasn't really enjoyed this course at all. A long straight road would be more suitable for his speed. No acceleration there. This man is not riding to win this time trial.
Well, in a couple of days' time, he's got a chance of coming out to time trial again, because there's a 42-kilometre individual time trial as we go a little bit further down the road. Alejandro Valverde, I believe, has got Stein de Volder in his sights. I saw a car just going round the corner. Now, if he is catching the Belgian time trial champion, this is a good ride.
That is not the face of a man who's out for an afternoon ride in Nancy on a Sunday afternoon here. This is a man who wants to lay the gauntlet down and ride away tomorrow in the yellow jersey of the Dauphiné Libéré, and they're continuing where he left off 1 year ago as the winner. As we go to see Ivan Basso coming up towards the line, I don't think he'll tickle the leaderboard, no. 13th and dropping away here. This isn't Basso's cup of tea at all. He might be seen a little bit more when we're racing up Mont Ventoux.
Well, he will have the force of a 3-week Grand Tour in his legs on the tougher, longer stages. This is probably just a little bit too explosive to a man who finished the 100th anniversary Giro d'Italia only 7 days ago.
16:36 for Ivan Basso, just inside the top 40 on the day and conceding 1 minute at the moment to Cadel Evans. That's a big loss when you know how those two will cross swords on the mountains. So we've just got 4 riders left to finish. There's the situation in the finish. 2 big names there. Now, normally Contador beats Cadel Evans. He'll be relieved at least that's not going to happen today. Evans leads Contador. Rossler now in 3rd place.
Important for Cadel Evans to get a psychological advantage there with a victory over Alberto Contador in an individual time trial like this. 1 kilometre left to go there for Bert Grapsch, the world champion at this discipline. But as we said earlier, Phil, over a slightly longer course, the World Championships, in this 12-kilometre burn.
I just don't feel that he's really putting his back into this ride today. He's had a few problems in the first couple of kilometres, which has unsettled him, and he's decided now to just ride it to the finish, thinking he's wearing the rainbow jersey of the top man in time trialling, but this is not his day, and it's really not his distance. And he's probably already heard of what times have been done by Contador and Cadel Evans.
Well, the first 3 riders through at kilometre 3 were Cadel Evans, Alberto Contador and Vincenzo Nibali, but Alejandro Valverde wasn't too far off the pace in 5th place, as we see Alexander Botcheroffer just going outside the top 100 and losing himself a huge chunk of time.
Good job we switched to the pictures. We wouldn't have found him on the computer down there, but here comes the world champion. Almost caught Botcherov for a minute, but even so, that's still not going to give him a great ride. He slips up the gears, gets back into his stride. The world champion comes home here. He was the 3rd man to start, and he's going to be around about the 22nd man to finish as he races up towards the line. Cadel Evans, 15:36. When he does a ride, Cadel Evans really can do a ride. 32nd place for the world champion.
Only 2 men now left out on course. Stijn de Volder, the champion of Belgium in the individual time trial, has been caught and passed by Alejandro Valverde at 1k to go.
Well, that is immensely important, I think, to the morale of Valverde here, who again is waving his fingers at the world of cycling, who they've disqualified possibly for 2 years for racing in Italy, which means at the moment he cannot ride the Tour de France. He's just caught the champion of Belgium for a minute.
And the reason for that is because under the legislation, the Tour de France actually goes into Italy for 64 kilometres, preventing Alejandro Valverde for the moment of participating in the Grande Boucle.
Well, they could give him a lift by car, surely. As Valverde goes through now as he races up. Sorry about the pictures. It's out of our control. We're into the high buildings here, and the helicopter appears to have lost contact with us. But it's a shame that we haven't tried to bring you pictures from this section of the course before. Maybe we shouldn't have done. Into the barriers now. The left turn here, which lines Valverde up. This is going to be a very, very interesting ride. It could still be the best time here. Remember, he's shooting at Cadel Evans' time of 15:36. It's gone. It's slipped away, but Valverde is only conceding a few seconds. Cadel Evans gets the win today, and that'll be special for him as he races up towards the line now. It is Alejandro Valverde still on a podium place at 3rd, but I don't think he's going to hold that ball as it goes towards that 16 minute. He does. He just stays in. The top 3 of the biggest names in world cycling, the only 3 men to beat 16 minutes.
Well, I think Valverde will be satisfied by that performance. You can see coming up to the line here, he's still got the power in his body there, still concentrated, looking at the line, looking at the clock on the bridge across the finish line to see what he has to do to challenge Cadel Evans. He is now looking for 13 seconds as we go out onto the open road tomorrow to catch up with Cadel Evans, and he's not too far behind Alberto Contador.
There's the face of a man full of determination for the week ahead, and he's whetted his appetite with a podium finish in the prologue time trial behind Contador and behind Evans particularly. There's the result. Cadel Evans, 15 minutes and 36, 8 seconds better than Alberto Contador. Might be crucial, that. 23 seconds better than last year's winner Valverde, 33 on Rosler, who probably won't reckon in the mountains, but Nibali might be up there. It's a good battle now, and David Miller for Garmin Slipstream completing the top 10. Well, now it's time for our sprint to the finish, and there's no doubt who produced the best sprint today, and that was Cadel Evans as he raced up to the line, his head rocking, his face full of determination. He knew that Contador was snapping at his heels just over a minute behind. He got to the line with what was to be the best time. And that is today's sprint to the finish. So the podium for Cadel Evans, and of course as winner of this stage 1 12-kilometre time trial, is the automatic leader of the race here. A yellow jersey, Paul, and he's finished second in this race for the last 2 years. Is he going to go one better over the next week?
Well, I think, you know, the important thing is to bear in mind he lost one of his teammates overnight sick, who wasn't able to start this, so this team is already starting with a disadvantage. It's a difficult race to control this because of all of the mountains, but he can come out and maybe consolidate on his advantage in the upcoming 42-kilometre individual time trial.
Well, I know Silence Lotto will be delighted if he does something, that's for sure. All right, well, don't forget to check in for daily highlights of the Dauphiné Libéré, which are on our website, versus.com, and we'll be back next Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time with 2 hours of the final stage of the Dauphiné, and following that, we'll bring you stage 2 of the Tour de Suisse as well. And that's where American Christian van der Velde will make his return to racing since he crashed out of the Giro d'Italia. So don't miss any of that. Don't forget either, for a full schedule of all of our cycling programming, log on to our website, versus.com, and there you'll also find some great articles by the inimitable Bob Roll and by Frankie Andreu. And don't forget the Map My Ride competition. Well done to Cadel Evans, he's the points leader, the race leader and the King of the Mountains leader. But we've only done 12 kilometres of the Dauphiné. Paul Sherwin, I'm Phil Liggett. Until next weekend, goodbye.